Welcome to Elite Renewables, my name's Tim. Now you may have seen the story in the media last week about the potential end of the bus scheme. There was one article in particular from The Guardian called "Hundreds of Thousands to Lose Heat Pump Subsidies in Reeve's Budget Plan." There was a couple of lines in here that got people really concerned. The first one, hundreds of thousands of homeowners will lose their right to subsidies for eco-friendly heat pumps as a result of government plans to bring down energy bills at the budget. The article goes on to say, the move will mean restricting heat pump subsidies so that only those receiving certain benefits will be allowed to claim them, sharply bringing costs down to the government. Now, given that most of the residential heat pump installations we do for customers at Elite Renewables are eligible for this £7,500 bus grant, there's been a sort of inevitable panic amongst people who are either considering a heat pump or who are actually having their heat pump installed, worrying about whether or not they're going to lose this £7,500 grant. So in this video, we're going to go through some of the questions that people have been asking, and we're going to give you our best answers to hopefully help you make sense of this quite unexpected tale of events. Now, we should say, at the moment, there is no official announcement. There are a handful of news stories from The Guardian, The Telegraph and The Express saying that this is happening and it's going to happen in the budget. But there has been no official announcement from the government yet. And until the budget, nobody is going to know for sure. A lot of people feel a bit blindsided by this, and they're trying to work out what this means. If you're considering a heat pump, you might be in that category as well. So the top questions that people have. Firstly, when would the scheme end? Well, again, there's no official word on this, so we don't know for sure. But what we can say is that if the government announced the end of the bus scheme or that they were going to means test it in the budget, it seems relatively unlikely that that will be something that happened on day one. They wouldn't just announce, right, the bus scheme has ended today. What's much more likely is that they would announce an end date in the future. This is what they've done with other incentives like the RHI, the Renewable Heat Incentive, the feed-in tariff, the eco campaigns. All of those had a future end date to give everybody a bit of time to prepare. There have been programs that have been ended on day one, like immediately, but usually those are failing programs, whereas the bus scheme is not failing. That's kind of why it's being looked at as a way to save cost, because it's so popular. So we think it's relatively unlikely that this is going to happen immediately. Nevertheless, of course, people who are looking at this £7,500 thinking that would make a massive difference to my financial situation, understandably, they are very keen to get their installation done and that bus grant claimed to avoid the risk of losing out if the government did make a very quick decision on this. The next question is, I've already started my installation, will I lose the funding? So how the bus program works is when we're doing an installation for a customer, we apply on the portal for a bus voucher. This voucher is then eligible for 90 days where we can claim that £7,500 grant to pay part of the install cost. We can only claim that grant once the system has been fully installed and commissioned. So it needs to be a finished installation by the end of that 90-day period. So what we usually do is we don't necessarily apply for it on day one. What we're doing in this case is we're applying for that bus grant voucher earlier, before the government's budget date, to make sure that we've got that locked in, we've got that bus grant voucher approved, just in case the government did make any rash decisions. We think it's incredibly unlikely, virtually impossible, that the government would refuse to honour bus grant vouchers that had already been approved. That would be crazy, right? What's much more likely is that they'll say the bus scheme is ending at this point or it's changing at this point, so you need to get your application in before then. But to be completely safe and to make sure that our customers have got their £7,500 grant locked in, we're applying for that voucher earlier just to be on the safe side. The next question is, when would I need to start my heat pump installation if I don't want to lose out? This goes back to that whole question about when the bus grant voucher is applied for. We can apply for that voucher as soon as the project is confirmed to go ahead. So when you're getting a heat pump, the process goes, you get an initial estimate usually. We'll then come out to your property to do a heat loss survey. This is where we measure the property, we work out exactly the heat pump that you're going to need, the size of the system, any changes to the existing heating system, and we'll then give you a full proposal detailing all of the costs and all of the equipment equipment. Once you're happy with that proposal, you then sign that and pay the deposit, and at that point we can apply for the bus grant voucher. Application for the bus grant voucher only takes about a day, so as long as the rest of that stuff, the heat loss survey and the proposal, happens before the day of the budget, we can be pretty confident that you will have your bus grant voucher by the day of the budget. So whatever happens, you'd be okay. Of course, if you haven't had a heat loss survey, you would need to get this booked in sooner rather than later. At Elite, for example, usually we can fit people in with their heat loss surveys in the same week or the next week. So we are cutting things fairly fine. We've put on additional capacity because we know people are really concerned about this. So if that's you, you can get in contact with the team. There's a number in the description, or you can call us on 020 8706 0056 and contact us, get your heat loss survey booked in, and we can start that process for you. Another question we've been getting is, if the bus scheme ends, what will happen to heat pump prices? The bus scheme doesn't actually impact the price of the heat pump or the installation. That will stay the same. The bus grant just impacts how much you pay. So it's essentially a £7,500 discount on the cost of getting a heat pump installed. If the bus scheme ends, that £7,500 grant goes away and customers have to pay £7,500 more to get that heat pump installed. Obviously, that's going to have a knock-on impact on the payback period. A lot of people make a decision to get a heat pump based on the payback period of the energy saving costs versus the cost of the installation. So that's going to be impacted quite significantly. Of course, we at Elite Renewables will keep you up to date with anything that we hear, both from the official sources and through the heat pump renewables industry grapevine, to make sure you are as clued up as possible as to what is going on here. Obviously, there's a lot of change, there's a lot of unknowns. We don't have any official announcements yet. But if you're concerned about this and you want to lock in your bus scheme voucher, then of course you can contact us through the website at eliterenewables.co.uk. You can drop us an email at info@eliterenewables.co.uk, or you can give us a ring on 020 8706 0056. That's 020 8706 0056. Let us know in the comments, what do you think about all of this, and what's your prediction for any changes that the government will make to the bus scheme? Until next time, see you soon.